Alright, so now I'm going to collect more milk, mid-milking.
Whoa.
I've stated my hypothesis that the post-filtration milk is probably going to be the most contaminated with bacteria. And I also expect that there will be more bacteria in the store-bought milk than the fresh raw milk. So post in the comments, let me know what you think. In 24 hours I will check these plates and we'll do some counts and we'll see what the results are. So I'm back in the lab and I realized, and you'll hear in the voiceover on the video, that I made a slight calculation error with my results. Since I was pipetting 0.1 mils or 1/10 of a mil onto each plate, I forgot to multiply by 10 for the mils, so that's why you'll hear my voiceover correction in the video. So the results from the initial test show that the raw milk had less than 3,000 colony forming units per mil, and the whole milk that was pasteurized and store-bought had 500,000 colony forming units per mil. So what I'm going to do is just do a quick setup where I'm going to dilute the raw milk and the control milk, the 2%, less. So I will hopefully be able to see if there's any bacteria and calculate basically 3,000 CFUs and below. So should be a quick setup and get the results in 24 hours. Okay, so based off of the results here, there is basically no growth on all of the plates except for the control store-bought whole milk. So I'm going to calculate how many bacteria per milliliter are in the whole milk. This was 2 days to the sell-by date. The 2% has like one bacterial colony growing on it, but everything else is clean except for the store-bought pasteurized whole milk. I'm actually quite shocked that there's not any growth on any of the other plates. So this media is showing that there are some gram-negative bacteria from the store-bought whole milk. This is diluted 10 times, 100 times, and then 1,000 times. So this appears to be the countable plate 10 to the minus 2, which would be between 30 and 300 colonies, so I have to count those and do a calculation. So Kelsey must have cleaned the outside of the teat first before she did the milking, because there is no growth on any of the plates, even the post filter. So she did a good job cleaning everything and being aseptic. So the countable plate was the 10 to the minus 3 plate. So that was diluted 1,000 times, and I counted 50 colony forming units on that plate, which means with the calculation, it's 1 over the dilution factor times the number of CFUs. That equals 50,000 colony forming units per 0.1 mils multiplied by 10, that equals 500,000 CFUs per milliliter. This is the eosin methylene blue, which selects for gram-negatives and is differential for E. coli. If E. coli was present, it would have had a green metallic sheen. I'll post a picture of that here in a second, what E. coli looks like on eosin methylene blue. But this plate was too numerous to count. Therefore, I would have had to dilute it further for an actual count of the gram-negative bacteria. This is an image showing E. coli growing on eosin methylene blue. You can see the green metallic sheen, which is absent from the plate that we had for the results of the whole milk. So to redo this dilution for the milk, I'm going to just pipette directly from the milk onto the media. So I'm going to put 100 microliters, and that'll be a 10 to the minus 1 dilution. And I'm going to use standard plate count media, and I'm going to use a different media called TSA, tryptase soy agar, and I'll still use the ESN methylene blue. So it'll be a little bit different, but we're just looking for bacterial counts, and I will also pipette 10 microliters onto a plate for a 10 to the minus 2 dilution factor. Alright, so the results of this experiment will show if I have at least 300 CFUs per mil. So the first experiment I diluted too much, so like I said, I would expect there to be bacteria in here. Okay, so here's the results from when I did the experiment again, just diluting it less. And so this is the 2% whole milk. There is one colony growing on the 10 to the minus 1, so it's too few to count. So again, all the plates are too few to count. This is first squirts of the milk. There's a couple bacterial colonies. It's one there and there. One there and there. Again, too few to count. So this is showing the results are less than 300 CFUs per mil. So still looks good. So this is from the teat. Again, a few colonies. Too few to count. Too few to count. This is the post-filtration, a few colonies, but everything is clean. And then here's that whole milk sample again. So the whole milk sample, who knows what could have happened with that if it was left out of refrigeration for a while or something, but that sample has consistently grown way more bacteria from that sample. And again, I counted with this 500,000 CFUs per mil with that first run. So very clean milking process. It's a key to preventing bacterial growth in your raw milk samples. Alright, so the beginning of this video I was in the lab and I did test for bacterial counts in raw goat milk. This is actually raw cow milk, Jersey milk, and it's very creamy. So we're just going to talk about the post results analysis and what a healthy animal should have as far as bacteria, and is raw milk actually considered dangerous to drink. So a clean, healthy animal should have less than 1,000 colony forming units per milliliter of milk. A colony forming unit, again, is just a bacterial cell that will form a visible colony on a solid agar plate. So the results from my test show that in all variables except for the store-bought whole milk, the total bacteria counts were less. The results show that there were less than 3,000 colony forming units per milliliter. Now I guarantee there is bacteria in this milk. It just wasn't able to show that in the type of test that I did. The method that I use is a method used for growing what are referred to as fastidious organisms, and those would be the typically harmful pathogens that have a optimal growth temperature range between 30 and 40 degrees Celsius. Things like Brucella, Campylobacter, E. coli, Salmonella, which can make people sick. So, as all good scientists should do, is you should critique and repeat your scientific tests. So I did do this twice, and I did it two different ways of diluting, but I only was testing for those fastidious organisms. So there's other bacteria that are called psychrophiles that are cold-loving organisms that usually are the ones that lead to milk spoilage because people store their milk in refrigerators. And then reading about other testing protocols, I did a 37-degree test for 24 hours. I've read that a lot of people will test at 32 degrees Celsius for 48 hours. What's the right way? Well, the right way would be to do more testing. So, also different media. I use the standard plate count media, which is a general purpose media used for a lot of different, food and water type bacterial tests. So
It would be interesting to do a test where you're looking for lactobacilli, like good bacteria that cheesemakers would be looking for to be in their milk.
So those organisms, again, would be fastidious, and they should grow pretty well and fast at between 30 and 40 degrees Celsius. So really, like I said, a healthy animal should have less than 1,000 CFUs per mil. I'm sure those bacteria are there. Perhaps after 2 days in the refrigerator doing another test, you would find that. So in that control sample of whole milk that I purchased from the store, that had a sell-by date, which was 2 days from the date that I purchased it. So it had 2 good days left, basically, for the sell-by date. But sell-by date, that just means the store needs to get rid of it by that time. So that had 500,000 CFUs per mil. Later, and it had shown in the media that I use that selects for gram-negative bacteria. So your gram-negative bacteria are your E. coli, Salmonellas. I didn't see any E. coli on that type of media. I'll put a picture up of what E. coli does look like on that media. It's called eosin methylene blue. There's ways that you can determine what the bacteria are, and I wasn't going to dive that deep into it. I was just looking at bacterial counts. So, so what those results show is that Kelsey does a good job taking care of her animals' teats and
well, they're healthy
and post handling of the milk. So there are antimicrobial properties of milk. So there's different things in the milk that will help prevent bacterial growth or actually even kill bacteria. Lactoferrin, for example, it's an iron binding protein, and it can potentially inhibit the growth of bacteria by limiting iron from bacteria. So iron is usually an essential element for some enzyme activity. Lactic acid bacteria, so your lactobacilli, have a low iron requirement, so that lactoferrin doesn't really have an effect on the bacteria.
That's interesting.
There's also something called the lactoperoxidase system. So it's called a system because there's a mechanism involved that involves different enzymes to kill bacteria, and it's supposedly the prominent enzyme that provides protection against microbial invasion into the mammary gland. So, and these things that I'm mentioning are kind of some are across all mammals. Some of these might be more prevalent in humans, say like the next one, lysozyme, which is prevalent in some species, but especially humans have a lot of lysozyme in their the milk mammary gland, and that kills bacteria by breaking down their cell walls. So most bacteria have cell walls, and the lysozyme can break that down. One of the things with pasteurization using heat, and earlier in the video I mentioned the two different methods of pasteurization that are commonly used. That pasteurization method may kill lysozyme. So the lysozyme is in cow milk, but the activity is typically low. So a high level lysozyme in cow's milk would indicate, mastitis or mammary gland infection. So is raw milk dangerous? We're drinking it. We've been drinking it for a few years now. But raw milk is statistically more likely to be linked to outbreaks than pasteurized milk, and that's basically just because the extremely low number of people that actually consume raw milk in the United States. So it's around 1% of the population actually drink raw milk in the United States. So the people at greatest risk for getting sick from raw milk would be the young, old, pregnant, immunocompromised, so somebody who might be undergoing cancer treatment. But just an example, from 1993 to 2012, so a very extensive period of time, and this is just one source, a couple sources that I looked at. There's 127 outbreaks, which resulted in 1,909 illnesses and 144 hospitalizations from that was linked to raw milk consumption. So, and those were mostly of Campylobacter and Shiga toxin producing E. coli and Salmonella. So it's not a very high number of illnesses that are actually recorded. It's not to say that people don't get sick more often from drinking raw milk. It's just that they just suffer through the diarrhea and vomiting at home, and they don't require going to the hospital. But that would be typically the symptoms that somebody would experience would be vomiting, diarrhea, cramping, and not just for a day, but often, depending on what it is, several days of those symptoms. So how can we prevent the bad bacteria? So some of the videos Kelsey shows of how she cleans the milking equipment, properly sanitizing the milk machine, the tubings, and then actually physically brushing those lines out once or twice a week is the best way for somebody to prevent post-exposure or post-milking contamination, because those tubing lines can form biofilm, and then that biofilm would shed bacteria into the milk pail as the milk is passing through the tubing. But the clean, healthy animals and the environment in which they're bedded in limits the risk of their udders the teats to be contaminated, which would then contaminate the milk coming out of the animal. And then proper udder cleaning before and after milking, so post milk teat dips, iodine, or what do you use?
I use chlorhexidine.
Chlorhexidine teat dip. And I don't know why do you choose to use that?
I read some study years ago when I was trying to figure out which teat dip to go with, and basically my thought was if there's some minute amount of iodine that actually makes it into the milk, that consuming iodine was more of a human health risk than the chlorhexidine.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I think both are popular. I think the iodine's a little bit cheaper, so it's more common.
Some other ways to prevent those bad bacteria would be mastitis testing, which we do weekly with our animals. And then the post-milk transportation handling, that's probably one of the big things too. So bringing your milk from the barn into your home, keeping that transport pail covered so no dust or debris enter into it. And then filtering that debris out before as you're pouring it into the storage containers. And then what Kelsey does is gets the milk really cold, really fast. She has these small little waste cans that the half-gallon mason jars, black your face, fit right in, and then we put ice in the water around the mason jar, and it gets the milk cold really fast.
We noticed that makes a big difference in the quality of the milk too. Like,
Yeah.
Especially the goat milk. If I get the goat milk cold really quick, there's no off taste to it. You wouldn't know if we gave you a glass and an Oreo that it wasn't just really good milk.
We've had people come over and offer them goat milk and say, "Oh, I don't like goat milk because it's goaty," and I've never tasted any goatiness to our goat milk.
I do think the cow milk, though, it smells like Greta's breath.
I guess I don't get that close to her breath. So getting the milk cold right away is a good way to prevent it, and not leaving it out on the counter, which our kids are notorious for doing. But all those can limit the risk of raw milk pathogens from propagating or growing in your milk products. So with the way our food industry is in this modern world, it takes one bad apple to spoil a bunch. So there is a greater potential for more people to be exposed or put at risk through purchasing from commercial dairy than home dairy.
Yeah, than drinking milk from our cow or our goat.
And it's going back to that, 1% of the U.S. population drinks raw milk. And, you see recalls for milk products all the time. Mm-hmm. So a greater number of people can be put at risk purchasing through the commercial system. So the potential for more people to be exposed is higher through a commercial system than through somebody like us. If we were allowed to do a herd share, we could notify the 5 people right away that, hey, stop drinking the milk, and then it might take a day, 2 days, a week before somebody would be notified that there was a recall on a milk product.
So the risk, I guess I'm thinking, for our family, if we have one cow or one goat that we're milking, like, we can be, I guess we feel reasonably sure that those animals are in good health. I'm the one doing the milking, so I know that everything's as clean as it possibly can be. Everything looks good.
And I've tested it.
Yeah, and Mike's always looking over my shoulder, making sure I'm doing everything the best that I can. And if there's any milk we're ever questioning or unsure about, we've always got pigs and calves and other places for that milk to go.
Right. Now, would I drink raw milk from another farm? Probably not.
No. And that was something I looked for years to find herd shares near us and was never able to. But I think even if I had, I would go and look at that farm and come home and think about it and say, I don't...
Yeah, I would have to, see every step of what they were doing before I would choose to consume that person's raw milk.
Yeah, and it's nothing personal. It's just that it is, it's a risky endeavor, and you want to make sure that it's done very well every time.
It literally takes, one bad apple to spoil a bunch, especially if you're milking, maybe 40 goats or something like that, and you have a decent herd share operation. That one goat that had a, bad bacteria infection spoils the whole bunch. So, if you're into the raw milk world, I would check out that person's farm and see how they do it before committing to a herd share, which we used to offer before our insurance company said no.
Or get your own goats. If our kids were hungry for cereal for breakfast and you had our milk from our cow or goat in the fridge and you had the jug of milk that had the 50,000 CFUs, would you feel safe feeding the 50,000 CFU per milk to our kids?
So, purchasing that and not knowing that, not knowing that milk had 50,000 CFUs per mil, it's really not overly concerning to me. I'd think that milk would, be fine to drink and not make somebody sick. There's bacteria in all food. I mean, we've tested lettuce and spinach and stuff from, pre-made sandwiches, and even washed lettuce from bags and stuff like that, and find, millions of bacteria per gram. And it's just there. I mean, I mentioned earlier in the video, we are 90% microbial.
Yeah.
The cells that you see are ours, but the ones you don't see, the 90 trillion or so, they're microbial, and they're everywhere, and it's normal. And consuming them, you do it all the time. And it's just a matter of who is in that food that can make you sick. So I don't try to create germaphobes. I try to, basically we are on this planet because of bacteria. There's more of them than there are of us, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. So,
do you think they're farming us?
Well, I saw a meme. Trees are farming humans. They provide us oxygen, and then when we die, they consume us. They consume us from the decomposition. So thanks for watching this video. Hopefully you learned something about raw milk and safe handling, why it's considered dangerous, and why we drink it and don't consider it dangerous. So it all has to do with proper care, proper handling, to prevent that bad bacteria. So thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.